Good evening. Let your shoulders drop just a little. You are here in the quiet. Whatever the day held, it is behind you now. The screens can rest. The news can wait. Tonight belongs to you and to sleep. Take one slow breath. Let it out. We are going to spend some time tonight thinking about something that worries a lot of people. Markets going down, numbers falling, headlines that feel urgent. We are going to think about it slowly and gently, and by the time we are done, you may find something you did not expect to find. Calm, even about that. Nothing here asks anything of you tonight. You do not need to act. You do not need to remember every word. Just let the ideas settle the way dust settles in a quiet room. And when sleep comes, let it. Imagine for a moment that you are watching the ocean. You are standing on the shore and you can see the water moving. It comes toward you, soft and steady. It reaches the sand, then it pulls back, then it comes again. Nobody panics when the ocean pulls back. Nobody calls it a catastrophe. The tide going out is simply part of the tide. It has always gone out, and it has always come back. Markets are a little like that ocean. They move. They rise and they fall and they rise again. Not on a schedule anyone can predict. Not in a way anyone controls. But over long stretches of time, the pattern holds. Forward, back, forward again. This is not just a comforting idea. It is what history actually shows us in country after country, over generation after generation. Markets go down. They have gone down many times, sometimes sharply, sometimes in ways that frightened everyone who was watching. And they have come back. Not every individual company, not every speculation, but broadly, when you own a small piece of the whole economy, the work of millions of people making and building and selling things, that broad piece has tended to grow. The ocean is not a perfect metaphor. Nothing is, but the underlying truth is real. Movement is the nature of markets, not a sign that something has gone wrong, just the nature of the thing. A market that only ever went up would not be a market at all. It would be something else. Something with no uncertainty, no risk, and therefore no real return. The breathing, the falling and rising is inseparable from what markets are. You cannot have the growth without the volatility. They are part of the same thing. So when prices fall, It is not a malfunction. It is not evidence that something has broken beyond repair. It is the tide going out, the way tides have always gone out. Let that thought rest quietly in you. Here is something important to understand. The feeling of a falling market is much louder than the falling itself. When prices drop, something happens in the mind that does not happen when prices rise. A kind of alarm sounds, not a gentle chime, more like a siren. The mind interprets loss as danger. It wants to act. It wants to run. This is old. This instinct is very, very old. Long before markets existed, your ancestors lived in a world where danger had to be met immediately. Hesitate, and the danger gets worse. So the mind learned to move fast when something felt threatening. That instinct kept humans alive for a very long time. But it was built for a different world. A world of immediate physical threats. Not a world of abstracted numbers on a screen. Numbers that represent possibilities and future events, and the collected moods of millions of strangers. When the market falls, nothing in your physical life has changed. You still have your home. You still have your work. You still have your relationships and your skills and your health and your capacity to earn and to save. What has changed is a number, a representation, a snapshot of how other anxious people are feeling today. The alarm the mind sounds is real. The danger it is pointing to may not be. And here is why this matters so much. Because the response the alarm wants to act, to run, to do something now, is often the most costly thing you can do. Not because acting is always wrong, but because the action the alarm suggests, which is to sell, to get out, to find safety somewhere else, tends to lock in the very loss you are afraid of. We will come to that soon. But for now, just notice the feeling if it is there. The urgency, the sense that something must be done. And gently ask yourself, is this information or is this fear? You do not have to answer tonight. Just let the question sit there. The alarm is not your enemy. It is trying to help you the way it has always tried to help. But it does not know about markets. It knows about saber-toothed cats. And those are different problems with different solutions. Let the alarm ring. You do not have to answer the door. Let us talk softly about what happens when people panic. When markets fall sharply, many people sell. They sell because it feels unbearable to watch. They sell because the news is saying terrible things. They sell because everyone around them seems to be selling. And selling feels like action. Action feels like control. But here is the quiet difficulty with that. When you sell during a fall, you do two things at once. You lock in the loss, and you step out of the recovery. The loss was only a paper loss until you sold, a number going down. Uncomfortable, yes. Unsettling to look at, yes. But not real in the way it becomes when you sell. Once you sell, the loss is done. It is yours. You have it. And then the market, often without warning, begins to recover. It does not send you a letter to let you know. It does not wait for you to feel ready. It simply begins to move forward again. And if you are not there, if you stepped out during the fall, you miss the early part of the rise. And the early part of the rise is often the most powerful part. Markets, when they recover, do not recover politely or gradually. They tend to recover in bursts, days that are dramatically positive, a cluster of strong mornings. If you have stepped out, you miss those days. And missing just a handful of the best days in a decade can cut your long-run return by a very significant amount. This has happened many, many times. People sell near the bottom. The market recovers. They wait, trying to find the right moment to get back in. The moment never feels obvious. It never feels safe enough. The market keeps rising. They get back in later when it feels calmer. But calmer means higher prices and fewer gains. The round trip, sell low, buy high, is the most common and the most expensive mistake in long-term investing. And it is not a mistake people make because they are foolish. It is a mistake people make because they are human. Because the alarm sounded, and they responded exactly the way the alarm asked them to. Understanding this does not make the alarm quieter, but it might help you to pause, to let the alarm ring, and to not open the door. That pause is worth a great deal. Sometimes it is worth years of growth. Sometimes it is the difference between arriving at retirement with comfort and arriving with regret. Just the pause, that is all. Let me take you somewhere, not far, just back through time a little. Imagine you are looking at a long road. It stretches out for decades, and along the road, there are hills and valleys. Some of the valleys are deep, very deep. The road drops down into shadow, and you cannot see the bottom from above. These valleys happened, all of them. There was a crash so severe it changed the way the whole world thought about markets. Prices fell by more than half. It took years. People lost jobs and savings and sleep. It felt, to the people inside it, like the end of something permanent. The road went back up. There was a time when new technology was promising the future so loudly that companies were valued at impossible heights. Heights that had no connection to the actual work being done or the actual money being made. Then the values collapsed. Companies disappeared overnight. Portfolios shrank dramatically and quickly. The road went back up. There was a crisis that began quietly in one corner of the financial system and spread until it threatened the stability of banks around the world. Prices fell sharply. Governments intervened. Fear was everywhere, in newspapers and conversations, and the faces of people who managed money for a living. The road went back up. There was a sudden shock, unexpected, global, unlike anything living memory had prepared anyone for that closed economies and frightened markets overnight. The fall was swift and steep. The road went back up. I am not telling you this to say that the road always goes up. I am not making a prediction. I am not promising you anything about what happens next, because I do not know what happens next, and anyone who tells you they do is not being fully honest. I am telling you what has happened, what the record actually shows. And the record shows something that is easy to forget in the middle of a fall. Falls have happened before. Many times. They have been severe. They have been frightening. And they have ended. The road continues. When you are in a valley, it is hard to believe in the road ahead. You can only see what is close. The darkness, the depth, the distance to the bottom. It is very human to think this valley might be permanent, to think this time is different, to think the road ends here. It might not. Not because things always recover, not as a guarantee, but because over and over, across different countries and different crises and different generations of frightened investors, recovery has been the more common outcome. Staying has been the wiser choice. The road continues. There is a particular kind of calm that comes from thinking in decades. days, not months, decades. When you think in days, a sharp fall looks enormous. It fills your whole view. It feels like the story. When you think in decades, that same fall becomes something smaller, a part of a much longer arc. One dip in a road that has covered enormous ground. Here is a gentle image. Think of a tree, not a sapling, an old tree, the kind that has been growing for 50 years. In any given year, there might have been a drought, or a storm, or a season of cold that lasted too long. The tree lost some leaves, maybe even a branch. It looked, for a while, uncertain. But you are looking at this tree 50 years later, and what you see is not the drought. What you see is the tree, tall, wide, quietly enormous. The drought is somewhere in the past, small and forgettable from where you stand now. Your investments, when held for a long time, have something of that quality. The storms are real, they happen. They are uncomfortable to sit through. But the tree does not stop growing because of a storm. It bends. It sheds what it must shed. It waits. And then spring comes again, and the growing continues. Thinking in decades does not make the storms painless, but it changes what the storm means. A drought that threatens a seedling is terrifying. A drought that visits a 50-year-old tree is difficult and real and survivable. Your financial life is long, even if you do not feel that way tonight. Even if the news is loud and the numbers are moving and everything feels urgent and sharp. Your financial life stretches out ahead of you further than tonight's headlines. And the tree is still growing. Here is something that gets lost in the noise of falling prices. When you own a broad investment in the market, you do not just own numbers on a screen. You own tiny pieces of real things, real companies, real buildings and machines and contracts and ideas. Real people going to work every day, making products, providing services, solving problems, building things. The number on the screen is an estimation, a collective guess, updated constantly, about what all of that is worth right now to people who are buying and selling. And that guess swings around, sometimes wildly, because people's moods swing around. But the underlying thing, the actual business, the actual work being done, does not swing around nearly as much as the price does. Think of a bakery. Every morning the baker arrives. mixes flour and water and yeast and something that knows how to rise, puts bread in the oven, takes it out, sells it, people eat it. The bakery's value, if you tried to estimate it on a nervous Tuesday versus a calm Thursday, might look very different on paper. But the bread is still being made. The customers are still eating. The oven is still warm. When markets fall, the baker is still baking. Most of what you own, when you own a broad slice of the economy, is still doing what it does. People still need things. Companies still employ people and create things and generate something of value. The crisis might slow this. It might affect it, but rarely does it stop it entirely. So when you see the number drop, it helps to remember what the number represents. Not just a score in a game. Actual human activity, real and ongoing, behind the abstraction. The baker is still baking. Let that be a quiet anchor. There is a very strange idea at the heart of long-term investing. And that idea is this: doing nothing is a strategy. Not laziness, not ignorance, strategy. When the market falls, the thing most people want to do is something. Anything. Check the numbers. Move things around. Sell this, hold that, buy something that feels safer. Activity feels like competence. It feels like you are managing the situation. But here is the quiet truth. The evidence, gathered over many decades, is that most attempts to time the market, to get out before it falls and get back in before it rises, make things worse, not better. Not because the people trying are foolish, but because the market is nearly impossible to time. Even professionals, with teams of researchers and sophisticated tools, are wrong more often than they are right about these things. The investor who does the least is often the investor who ends up with the most. This is counterintuitive. It feels wrong. We are taught from childhood that effort produces results. That if things go wrong, you intervene. That watching something struggle and doing nothing is negligence. But markets are not a child who needs to be corrected. They are a system. Vast, complex, driven by billions of decisions made simultaneously by people all over the world. You cannot steer it. You can only ride it or step off it. And stepping off, historically, has cost more than staying on. So doing nothing when the market falls, when the alarm is sounding, when every impulse says act, is itself a choice. a disciplined, intentional choice, a recognition that the ride is uncomfortable and that discomfort is not a reason to stop. Some of the most successful long-term investors are the ones who did the least, not the ones who were the most active, not the ones who responded to every piece of news, the ones who made a plan in a calmer moment and then held to it through all the noisy seasons that followed. Doing nothing is not passive. It is the hardest thing to do when the alarm is ringing. And it is one of the quietest and most powerful choices you can make. You may have some money invested somewhere, in a retirement account, perhaps, in a savings plan, in a small collection of funds you added to slowly over the years, in something your parent set up for you once that you have not thought about in a while. Tonight, as the markets have done whatever they have done, you have exactly one job. Leave it alone. Not forever. Just tonight. Just now in the dark, where nothing can be acted upon anyway. Just for the length of this breath and the next. Your one job tonight is not to check the number. It is not to calculate what you have lost or what you might lose further. It is not to research alternatives or draft a plan or send an email to anyone. Your one job tonight is to rest. Because here is something true. Nothing that happens while you are asleep will require your action tonight. Not in any meaningful way. Markets will move while you sleep, and when you wake, they will have moved in some direction, and none of it will have needed you to be awake for it. The number will be whatever it is when you look, and it will change again by the time you look next, and again after that. The number is always changing. You are not. You are still you, with your skills and your habits and your quiet good sense, with your capacity to save more, spend less, invest patiently, and wait. Those things do not go down when markets go down. They are yours. Whatever the market does tonight, those things are yours. Your knowledge, your income, your habits, your health. These are the real foundations of your financial life, not the number on the screen. The foundations do not shake when the screen shakes. Let your hands relax. Let your face go soft. Whatever you were holding, you can set it down. You do not have to carry the market tonight. It will carry itself the way it always has. Here is one of the quieter secrets of building wealth over a lifetime. secret is that most of it happens while you are not watching. You put money away, you leave it. Life continues. Months pass, years pass, and somewhere in there, quietly, without announcement, the money grows. Not dramatically every day. Sometimes it shrinks, but over long stretches, it has a tendency to grow. And the growth, over time, begins to add to itself. This is compounding. You have probably heard the word. It is usually explained with numbers and charts, but at its heart, it is very simple. Growth grows. The money you put away earns something, and then that something earns something, and that something earns something. Over time, the additions get quieter, and the growth gets larger, and the whole thing has a kind of momentum that requires almost nothing from you. Almost nothing except time and patience and the willingness to leave it alone during the seasons when it feels frightening to do so. The people who benefit most from this are not the people who find the cleverest investments. They are not the people who got in at exactly the right time or got out at exactly the right time. They are the people who stayed, who did not panic, who made a quiet decision somewhere along the way to let the years do the work. And the years did the work. You can be one of those people. Not by doing anything difficult tonight. Not by calling anyone or reading anything or making any decision. Simply by being the kind of person who does not run when the ground shakes. By being, in this moment, and in the quiet mornings ahead, someone who stays. A fall in the market is not a disruption to the long game. It is part of the long game. It is a test, in a way, not of your intelligence or your skill, just of your patience, of your willingness to let the alarm ring and not answer it. And patience here is not resignation. It is not giving up. It is the active, intentional choice to trust the arc, to trust that the road continues, to trust that the tree is still growing even when the storm is loud. That is the whole game. It is not a complicated game. It is not an exciting game, but it is a very good one. And you are already playing it. You have been playing it longer than you might realize. Every time you let a fall pass without selling, you played it. Every time you kept adding to your account when things felt uncertain, you played it. Every time you looked away from the number and went back to your life, you played it. You are already, in many small and quiet ways, someone who stays. We have covered a lot of ground tonight, slowly. We have thought about markets breathing in and out, the way the tide goes out and returns. We have thought about why a falling market feels so urgent when, in the long view, it is simply a season. We have thought about the cost of panic and the quiet history of recoveries and the strange, powerful strategy of doing nothing at all. None of this is a prediction. None of this is a promise. The future is uncertain, and anyone who tells you otherwise is not being honest with you. But there is something that is not uncertain. Something that has been true across many generations, many countries, many different kinds of hardship and fear and recovery. People who stayed calm did better than people who did not. Not because calm people are special. Not because they were smarter or richer or more disciplined in some unusual way, but because calmness allowed them to do the one thing that is genuinely hard in a falling market: to wait, to let the alarm ring and not run through the door. You can do that. You are already doing it in a way by lying here in the dark, not checking numbers, letting the night be quiet. The market is doing whatever it is doing, and you are here, breathing, resting, not running. That is more than it sounds like. Let your body sink a little deeper into wherever you are. Let your breath find its own pace, slow and easy. Let your thoughts drift if they want to drift. You do not need to hold onto any of this. The ideas will be here tomorrow. Tonight, they are just company. The market will open again tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. Each day will bring its own number, its own mood, its own small alarm or small comfort. And on most of those days, your best move will be exactly what you are doing right now. Nothing. Gentle, intentional, patient nothing. You have invested in patience tonight. And patience, in the long run, is the most reliable investment there is. Sleep well. The tree is still growing. Whatever comes next, the road continues.